Someone in a recent New York Times article made the bold claim that not only have UFOs crashed on Earth, but materials from these crashes have been collected and studied by unnamed groups. I'm Jason, and today we're taking a quick look at UFO crash retrievals. On July 23, 2020, the New York Times published an article titled, "No Longer in the Shadows, Pentagon's UFO Unit Will Make Some Findings Public." The article's authors Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal point out that former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid believes that crashes of objects of unknown origin may have occurred and that retrieved materials should be studied. Reid has mentioned this a couple times to KLAS investigative reporter George Knapp.
Some people say that there are some public corporations that have materials that we should look at. Now, I wanted to make sure that that was valid or not valid, but I couldn't get, they wouldn't, Defense Department wouldn't approve it.
The Times article also mentions Eric Davis, a former Pentagon subcontractor who says he gave a classified briefing to a Defense Department agency as recently as March about retrievals from off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. Davis was contracted by Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, or BASS, a private organization owned by real estate and private space tycoon Robert Bigelow. BASS received a government contract to study all sorts of strange things, including UFOs. Back in December of 2017, the New York Times published an article that not only revealed this government-funded study, but also reported that the company modified buildings in Las Vegas for the storage of metal alloys and other materials that Mr. Elizondo and program contractors said had been recovered from unidentified aerial phenomena. The Mr. Elizondo mentioned here was also mentioned in the July 23rd New York Times article. This is Luis Elizondo, the former head of the Pentagon's UFO project, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The article says that Mr. Elizondo is among a small group of former government officials and scientists with security clearances who, without presenting physical proof, say they are convinced that objects of undetermined origin have crashed on Earth with materials retrieved for study. That government-funded study was put in motion by Harry Reid, who is a longtime friend of Robert Bigelow. And the Times points out that Reid's interest in UFOs came from Mr. Bigelow. So you can quickly start to see that a lot of these recent claims of recovered UFO crashes stem from a single source. Ta-da! Robert Bigelow's interest in alleged alien materials is well documented, and we know that To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science is actively engaged in acquiring alleged alien materials. Luis Elizondo is currently the Director of Government Programs and Services at this company, and Chris Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, serves on the advisory board for TTSA. Mellon was asked by CNN recently to share his thoughts about Eric Davis's statements.
I was quoting Eric Davis. I know you're familiar with his work when I read that New York Times paragraph a moment ago. Do you believe that there are objects in our possession, broadly defined our possession, that are from something other than this Earth?
What I will say about that is that I think that assertion should be taken seriously. I'm aware of, I know Eric very well. I understand his arguments. I was present at his briefings on the Hill, and he tried to provide some leads for them to follow to enable them potentially to confirm this. It is an issue that should be taken seriously.
In the New York Times article, the authors cautiously and responsibly added statements like, in some cases, earthly explanations have been found for previously unexplained incidents. Even lacking a plausible terrestrial explanation does not make an extraterrestrial one the most likely, astrophysicists say. And no crash artifacts have been publicly produced for independent verification. Some retrieved objects, such as unusual metallic fragments, were later identified from laboratory studies as man-made. This is good, responsible, objective journalism on the part of the authors. But don't misinterpret this as saying there's nothing noteworthy to look at when it comes to the subject of UFO crash retrievals. Also, don't think that this is some new sexy angle being added to the UFO discussion. Crash retrievals have always been part of UFO lore. The 1947 Roswell UFO incident is a prime example, but it's just one of so many. So much has been written on crash retrievals, and it is its own subset of UFO research. It's a really fascinating topic, and I get into it a bit more on this episode of the UFO podcast Unknown. So check that out if you're interested in hearing more about it.